Hello class, welcome back to our second discussion-based assignment. Today we'll be going over Module 2, and I'll try to make this as brief as possible because there's a lot to explain and not that much time. Now, we'll be going over the topics of World War I, World War II, the Holocaust, and the rebuilding of defeated nations. Now, World War I started due to a lot of different factors. An acronym for these factors, and the way that can help you remember it, is MANIA. This is militarism, alliances, nationalism, imperialism, and assassination. Now, all of these were factors that led to World War I. Militarism, the countries were increasing their military power for both defense and for power. Alliances, which led to the domino effect that led all these different countries to fight against each other. Nationalism, the kind of uniting of identity. Imperialism, taking over other people's lands, and assassination. Now, going into it, World War I famously started with the assassination of Archduke Ferdinand. He was from Austria-Hungary, and he was assassinated by a Serbian nationalist due to the conflicts that they had over land, as I mentioned before. Now, the alliances that these two had made it so that their conflict wasn't just them. It was also the surrounding countries within Europe as well. The two main sides were the Allied powers and then the Central powers. Allied and then the Central. The Allies included countries such as Britain, it included France, Russia, and then later the United States and Italy. Britain, France, Russia, and then later the United States and Italy. We joined, initially we didn't want to join the conflict because we didn't want to get pulled in, but with events such as the sinking of Lusitania and the Zimmermann telegram, it kind of forced our hand to join the conflict. Now, on the Central Power side, we have countries such as Germany. We have, of course, Austria-Hungary. We have the Ottoman Empire, as well as Bulgaria. And these are the two kind of sides that were fighting against each other. Of them, some of the major leaders included were Germany under Kaiser Wilhelm II. Britain had Prime Minister David Lloyd George. France had George Clemenceau, and Russia under Tsar Nicholas II. And then, of course, the United States under Woodrow Wilson. World War I ended with Germany when it agreed to an armistice. Now, an armistice doesn't necessarily mean a surrender. It is just an agreement to stop fighting. The armistice happened in 1918 with the Treaty of Versailles. Now, this treaty was very heavy on punishment for Germany because they were kind of blamed for the conflict in general. And this led them to be under a lot of debt, and along with the mass destruction that was going on within Europe because of the war, things were kind of catastrophic. Everything was almost settled, I guess you could say. Things were bad. World War I itself introduced new wartime technologies, such as aerial combat, submarine warfare. Trench warfare was a large, kind of iconic part of it. And overall, all of this leads to kind of the conditions of what lead to World War II. Overall, due to the heavy reparations that Germany had to kind of fork out the Allied powers in order to pay back all the debt that they accrued during the war, kind of a triangle emerged because the United States, one, they joined later, two, they didn't fight directly on their land, and so they were relatively okay after the war. And so they often loaned money to Germany, which they used to pay back their reparations to the Allies, and then the Allies used to pay back some of the debts that they had to the US. Now, this balance was really important, and when it breaks, we see what happens. It breaks due to the Great Depression, which leads to worsening conditions, which leads to, at least specifically in Germany, the people who already felt that they were kind of unfairly blamed for the conflict to want to kind of go back to their glory days. They wanted better from the rampant inflation and just famine and poorness that the country was experiencing. And so when a persuasive politician named Adolf Hitler came around, kind of promising all of this, they kind of listened to him. Now this goes into World War II. As I mentioned before, World War II, with at least specifically to Germany, kind of centered around Adolf Hitler. He was one of the most famous figures in the war, but he was not the only one. There was also Italy with Mussolini and his black shirts. Both were under fascist governments, but Mussolini was actually the first to kind of create a fascist government, which Hitler later kind of took inspiration from and rose to power, kind of like copying off of him. Outside of that, you also have Japan kind of over there. These circles are just kind of meant to represent the countries, although they're not very good. Japan. And this was another country who was wanting to expand their borders, kind of using the imperialist mindset. They wanted to expand and grow bigger. Now, these countries kind of allied together. Once again, it was against the Axis powers with these three and then the Allies. World War II began in 1939 when Adolf Hitler and Nazi Germany invaded Poland. Britain and France responded by declaring war on Germany. Now, the reason why Hitler wanted to invade Poland was, as I said before, he was wanting to kind of expand the borders and go back to the glory days of like the Roman Empire and all that jazz. Honestly, the Allies could have stopped all this from happening, but they were underneath the kind of the strategy of appeasement. Appeasement was really important for how Hitler was able to garner his power, because there were obviously a lot of warning signs, but the Allies didn't want another world war. They thought if they just kind of appeased Hitler and appeased Germany, that they would kind of back off and everything would be fine, but obviously this only emboldened him more. The two main sides, as I mentioned before, were the Allies and Axis powers. The Allies included Britain, the Soviet Union, the United States, China, and France. And the Axis, Germany, Italy, and Japan, each underneath their own iconic leaders. The war lasted from 1939 to 1945, and it made it a 6-year-long conflict across Europe. It happened in Africa, it happened in Asia, in the Pacific Ocean, all over the world. The major figures included Winston Churchill, Franklin D. Roosevelt, our boy, Joseph Stalin, and General Dwight Eisenhower. Another one of our great American presidents. The war ended in Europe in May 1945 after Germany surrendered in the Pacific. This was known as VE Day, standing for Victory in Europe. Later, when America dropped the 2 atomic bombs on Nagasaki and Hiroshima, Japan also surrendered, which led to a VJ Day, which stood for Victory in Japan. Now, while this conflict was very bloody and very devastating, similar to World War I, it was also unique in its specific cruelty. Hitler didn't just use his charm as a politician and harkening back to the old days to kind of gain power. He also used fear and and racism to kind of cement his hold. and specifically against the Jews and just anyone that they kind of considered undesirable. This led to ghettos, concentration camps, and even killing camps. 6 million Jews died, and it was a horrible, horrible thing. The Holocaust was the systematic murder of 6 million Jews by the Nazis during World War II. That's just the simplest way of saying it. It was under Hitler's leadership. Jews were stripped of rights, forced into ghettos, concentration camps, and, as I mentioned before, extermination camps. One of the most famous being the Auschwitz concentration camp. The Nazis used different methods. They used exhaustion, they used gas chambers, starvation, mass shootings, all these to carry out the genocides against these people. The Holocaust remains one of the worst crimes against humanity in history and is remembered as a warning of hatred, racism, and authoritarianism. It's one of the most famous events of World War II, and it is something that we shouldn't forget for just the lessons that it teaches us. But on to slightly less dark topics, we have the rebuilding of the kind of defeated powers. After World War II, the defeated powers, especially Germany and Japan, were rebuilt with the help of the Allied powers. Kind of learning their lesson from last time, they didn't exact as heavy punishment on Germany and the other countries, but they definitely did have measures in place. Germany was divided into East and West Germany. West Germany received major economic support from the United States with their Marshall Plan and the Truman Doctrine to help support these countries rebuild instead of just leaving them in the dust to build resentment once again. There are also other reasons, such as fighting off communism, but that's for another time. Industries were rebuilt, infrastructure was repaired. Japan was occupied by the United States under General Douglas MacArthur, and Japan adopted a new constitution. The emperor was kind of stripped of his power, and the country was focused on economic growth and democracy, kind of bringing them more towards our mindset. And Japan actually has become one of our biggest allies. Italy also transitioned from fascism and rebuilt its government economy, and the rebuilding efforts helped former enemies become stable democracies and major economic powers in the decades after the war. After the war, of course, leads to the Cold War, but once again, that is for another time. Overall, we have gone over World War I, World War II, the Holocaust, and the rebuilding. I hope this has been informational and helpful with World War I and the new technologies that it created, as well as the reasons for it. Remember Mania, World War II, with the reasonings why they gained power, as well as the atrocities that they committed, specifically the Holocaust, and how terrible that was, and how racism, kind of the effects of racism, authoritarianism, and the like, and how we can do better to rebuild. Thank you. I'm Gavin Askew, and I hope you have a good day.